Morning, everyone. I call this meeting to order. Welcome to meeting number 21 of the House of Commons Standing Committee on Citizenship and Immigration. Given the ongoing pandemic situation and in light of the recommendations from health authorities, as well as the directive of the Board of Internal Economy on Thursday, November 25th, 2021, to remain healthy and safe, all those attending the meeting in person are to maintain 2-meter physical distancing, must wear a non-medical mask when circulating in the room, and it is highly recommended that the mask be worn at all times, including when seated. Must maintain proper hand hygiene by using the provided hand sanitizers in the room. Please refrain from coming to the room if you are asymptomatic. A reminder that all comments should be addressed through the chair. When you are not speaking, your mic should be on the mute and your camera must be on for all those who are logged in virtually. Just for the safety of the staff working in this room and everyone to have feel safe. It's really very important if members or any of the people are going around in the room, they should wear a mask. So please make sure that even if you are going to pick up the food, wear a mask. I just have to make sure that I emphasize the importance of making sure that everyone in this room feels safe. So today we are going to start our study on the application backlogs and processing times. Pursuant to Standing Order 108, we will begin this study today, and I would like to welcome our witnesses. Today, we are joined by Ghulam Faizi and Hamid Khan, representing former Afghan interpreters. We are also joined by Luisa Voronois, Associate Professor and Research Chair in Immigration and Franco-Ontarian Communities, University of Ottawa. And our third witness for today's meet panel is Kareem Al-Afsal, Director of Policy, representing Canada Visa. Thank you to the witnesses for appearing before this committee, and it's good to have in-person witnesses. It's after a long time, so today is the second day that we have the in-person witnesses. That's a good feeling to have. So all the witnesses will have 5 minutes for their opening remarks, and we will start with former Afghan interpreters. So Mr. Faizi or Mr. Khan, you can please begin. You will have 5 minutes for your opening remarks.
Mr.
They'll mute the. Can I proceed?
Yes, you can please begin.
Thank you so much, Ms. Chairman. I'll present the opening statement highlighting the issues with the IRCC public policy of December 09, 2022 for the former interpreters' extended family members. A confirmation on timelines. Former Chief of Staff to the previous Minister at Immigration, Refugees and Citizenship Canada assured former Canadian Armed Forces interpreters that the public policy will be announced on December 09, 2021 to bring the extended families of former Canadian interpreters to Canada. And when the applications are received by the intake office at IRCC, the applicants will start receiving UCI and G numbers within the 24 to 48 hours window. But contrary to the promises made by the IRCC, majority of our former interpreters applicants did not receive their UCI and G numbers since the applications were received by the intake office 3 months ago. IRCC also promised us that the first batch of arrivals of former interpreters' extended families will begin in the first quarter of 2022, and they will start arriving within the first 3 to 4 months of the year. Now, we have advised IRCC with the challenges that the former interpreters are facing on numerous times. Some of the challenges and problems that we share with IRCC is the UCI numbers are not fully issued for the group. Medical test in Pakistan has longer than 30 days delay time or wait time. IRCC requesting multiple times the same documentation such as Schedule A and Form 153. I'll move on to the accommodation. Accommodations are still not provided for the applicants in Pakistan for passing eligibility more than 15 days after confirmation. Due to current situation in Pakistan, local housing became unaffordably to sustain for a long period of time by the former interpreters' families. Local point of contact shall be providing to assist with these questions and better tracking of who was assisted and who is pending. IRCC is relying on IOM and Aman Lara to fully coordinate this work without overseeing fully the time frames it is done. Providing a clear pathway. Provide single child documented travel to Pakistan, left medical requirements to be done in Canada upon arrival, like the other programs which Canada has offered before. Open discussion with Qatar and Tajikistan to accommodate families of former interpreters temporarily before they're processed to come to Canada. CIMM program. IRCC shall be providing the same level of generosity and services in terms of support upon arrival to Canada for the former interpreters' extended families as they have provided to any other immigrants that are arriving in Canada, such as Syrians, the Ukrainians. And the eligibility. Request to include the 4 or 5 families in the public policy of that was announced on December 9. These families left Afghanistan earlier than July 22nd, 2021. The policy got updated to limit this program to 5,000 people. However, the concern is IRCC did not yet issue all the UCI NG numbers to our applicants, and the program might reach the limit, leaving some people not getting UCI numbers afterwards, as promised by the IRCC to the farm interpreters. Thank you, Mr. Chairman.
Okay, so thank you, Mr. Khan. We will now proceed to Ms. Varones, Associate Professor and Research Chair in Immigration and Franco-Ontarian Communities from University of Ottawa. Ms. Varones, you will have 5 minutes for your opening remarks. You can please begin.
Okay, thank you very much. First of all, I really appreciate being here and being able to participate in your committee's discussions. I will share some observations regarding the costs and impacts of delays and backlogs on specific categories based on my research, and I have a few suggestions for potential solutions. So regarding costs and impacts of delays when it comes to economic immigrants, I have heard of the uncertainties that delays have caused on applicants and their families who may be unable to make essential decisions regarding important life matters, including their jobs, their careers, investments, family, and health, with potentially detrimental impacts, as well as lost opportunities. Sometimes applicants have secured a job in Canada, and both they and their employer are left in limbo, with the risk for the applicant to lose their job and for the employer to face the consequences of labor shortages. Meanwhile, in the case of applicants who are given a timeline for when they will receive a response to their permit, it leads them to develop expectations and sometimes even to organize and prepare for their arrival to Canada, for example, by selling their assets, giving notice at their jobs. And if delays occurs, these applicants and their families then face untenable situations, for example, not having a home, not having an income, as we saw in the first year of the pandemic when international borders limited the possibilities for travel. And it's also not uncommon for applicants to have to redo the medical exams once, twice, or more times at their own costs, given that the results of medical exams are valid only for a limited period of typically around 6 months. In particular, my research focuses on Francophone immigration and minority contacts, and Francophone immigrants, or applicants rather, seem to be facing these challenges at higher rates, as seen very recently from a petition signed by 700 Francophone immigrants who applied to the provincial nominee program had received provincial approval, but whose files were then unduly delayed. And they claimed there were inequities in the way application files were treated. They were in communication with English-speaking provincial candidates, and their files seems to be moving faster. With regard to family reunification, in my research, I've heard numerous accounts of delays, specifically for reunification of spouses and children, with wait times of upward to 2 years and more. The separation creates uncertainty and a tremendous cost for these families, who often also have to redo the medical exams, as mentioned previously. And in the case of refugees who've been admitted to Canada and wish to sponsor immediate or extended family members who remain in refugee camps and conflict zones, the delays are tremendous. These individuals undergo significant stress because they're concerned about the well-being of their loved ones, especially children, which as a result means they can't fully focus or invest in their own settlement and integration here in Canada, which further delays their own well-being. Lastly, with regard to private sponsorship groups, we heard, including during the Syrian Refugee Resettlement Initiative, of the costs that sponsors occurred when they had found housing for the family they were going to receive, but the family didn't come. There were delays and they were left paying rent, for example, for empty apartments, depleting the funds they had prepared. In terms of recommendations, I'll focus on two ideas that we can discuss further. The first is regarding Francophone immigration. Rather than creating a Francophone stream within the existing dominant mainstream immigration categories like the express entry or provincial nominee candidates, it may be time to consider creating a separate immigration policy or category that is specifically designed for French-speaking immigrants, given that the government and Francophone institutions have determined Francophone immigration as a priority for the vitality of Francophone communities, and the selection criteria could therefore be different from the mainstream. And second, for family unification, it is time to consider modernizing and facilitating or simplifying the process to accelerate processing times to avoid undue strain on families who remain separated for so long. Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you, Ms. Varonis. We will now proceed to Mr. Al-Assal, Director of Policy, representing Canada Visa. Mr. Al-Assal, you will have 5 minutes for your opening remarks. You can please begin.
Canada's immigration backlog stands at over 2 million people. It has nearly doubled since the start of the pandemic. The permanent residence inventory has grown from 400,000 to 530,000 people. The temporary residence inventory has doubled to 1.2 million people, and the citizenship inventory has gone from 230,000 to 400,000 people. The backlog is undermining Canada's economic, social, and humanitarian objectives. We have the lowest unemployment rate on record and over 800,000 job vacancies. The backlog hurts our economic recovery efforts since we can't bring newcomers into Canada quickly enough to address our labor shortages. For instance, it's now taking 31 months to process Quebec skilled worker applications and 28 months to process paper-based provincial nominee program applications, even though the service standard for both is 11 months.
J'ai pas la traduction, Madame Lepoulou.
Sorry, there is no interpretation.
Okay, c'est revenu.
Can you hear now?
Now we're good.
Should we begin from the beginning?
No.
Okay. Yes, please go ahead.
The backlog is keeping families apart. For example, although the service standard for spousal sponsorship is 12 months, it's taking us 20 months on average to process outland applications. On the humanitarian side, Canada is making refugees and displaced persons live in discomfort for far longer than necessary, as we're currently seeing with Afghans and Ukrainians. It is absolutely imperative we get the immigration system back on track. Within the next decade, all 9 million baby boomers will reach retirement age. We're going to need more immigrants to grow our labor force, tax base, and economy. However, other countries will win the race for talent if Canada continues to struggle to provide immigrants with certainty that will process their applications quickly and fairly. This will come to the detriment of our economic and fiscal health. I'd like to provide 3 recommendations to the committee. First, we need more transparency. The government should be mandated with providing monthly updates to the public on the state of immigration policy and operations. Immigration in Canada is far too important to be a black box. We should not have to rely on access to information requests, as has been the case during the pandemic, to remain informed about the immigration system. The monthly updates should contain critical information such as the government's policy priorities, its backlog reduction plan, among other details that can help restore the trust in our immigration system that has been eroded during the pandemic. Providing monthly updates would also reflect well on the government. People are more understanding and forgiving when you're honest with them. Second, we need more accountability. An independent study should be commissioned to better understand the operations of the immigration system during the pandemic. Right now, we have many unanswered questions. What are the causes of this backlog? The pandemic alone can't entirely explain the situation we're in. For instance, express entry was designed to avoid backlogs. So why then do we have an express entry backlog? We need an evidence-based study that answers these sorts of questions and provides us with guidance to ensure such backlogs never happen again. Third, we need to work more collaboratively. Major decisions have been made during the pandemic with little consultation, leading to avoidable consequences. We're blessed to live in a country with many immigration experts from law, academia, think tanks, business, the settlement sector, among others. They are assets to our immigration system. Hence, my final recommendation is that the government form a National Advisory Council on Immigration. The Council's mandate would be to provide the government with technocratic advice to inform our country's major immigration decisions. We're a diverse nation with diverse immigration objectives. We need diverse views reflected in our immigration policy. To conclude, I want us to remember that among these 2 million people waiting in the backlog are our future colleagues, friends, neighbors, voters, politicians, business, and civil society leaders. They are Canada's future, and we must treat them with the dignity and respect that they deserve.
Thank you, Mr. Al-Assal. We will now proceed to our round of questioning, and we will begin our first round of questioning with Mr. Reddycop. Mr. Reddycop, you will have 6 minutes. You can please begin.
Thank you, Madam Chair, and thank you to all the witnesses for joining us here today, and appreciate your presence here, and sorry for the late start, but that's the way life is around here. I'm going to start with the Afghan interpreters. I had the pleasure to sit on the Special Committee on Afghanistan just a bit ago. Sally Armstrong was a Canadian journalist who was at the committee and was speaking about the horrors that she had experienced firsthand helping refugees and others to get out of the country to Canada. And I asked her about a comment I've heard from different people that there's a risk that if we bring in people from Afghanistan too quickly, we might get some terrorists in Canada. And her response was, quote, "You could say that with every single refugee program we've ever instigated. The terrorists are running Afghanistan. They're not trying to come here. I think that is a very poor and weak and wrong conclusion to draw in the face of vulnerable people who need us to help them," end quote. So I want to ask Mr. Khan and Mr. Faizi both to comment on this. Do you agree with her conclusion that when the government labels people coming out of Afghanistan as potential terrorists, that they're politicizing and reiterating stereotypes that people might have of Muslim people, for example? Mr. Khan?
Thank you for this important question. We have brought to the government's attention previously once we heard these kind of comments from the government, and it was hurtful comments. The fact that the Afghan interpreters worked side by side with the Canadian Armed Forces and its civilian mission. We have worked with the Canadian the incoming Canadian members of parliaments in Kandahar, as well as the senators visiting Kandahar, as well as the Canadian International Development Agency, higher officials. So most of, if not everybody, of our former interpreters had the top level security clearances, as well as background checks on numerous occasions. I don't think this, as you stated, that if the government is saying that this is the situation or this could happen with any other refugees or immigration process. But all our foreign interpreters have been screened, have been background checked, as well as the information about their families have been provided to the RCC in December last year. Thank you.
Thank you. And Mr. Faizi, what would you have to say about that?
We have been telling the immigration and RCC and weekly meetings so they can take the biometrics when our families move to third countries, such as like Pakistan, and they can do their process once they're being eligible in their system, they can bring them in. However, the system is make them delay and they require other medical examination, which is not part of the security. So we've been telling them, you guys can done the medical tests upon their arrival in Canada. As Mr. Khan said, we were the people walked and sat in the same armor cars with the Canadian military in Kandahar, and we made Taliban or terrorists or enemy or the enemy of our families because of the enduring relationship we had with the Canadian Armed Forces. So I strongly disagree with whoever made that comments. There will be a risk of bringing terrorists because they have a system they can process and then bring them into Canada. Thank you.
Thank you for your comments. And just, for the record, we really appreciate the work that you guys have done. I'm sure all of us at the committee here stand with you and really appreciate everything that you and all of the other interpreters did for us in Afghanistan. There was another question that I asked to Ms. Fro, who is the founder of Women and Peace Studies Organization, about her observations on a subject. And she told me, we were talking about the third country, and she said this, quote, "The third country phenomenon has been very difficult for us Afghans. Right now, my colleagues has travel authorization to travel to Canada, but they do not have Pakistani visa. They cannot obtain a Pakistani visa. There are also political and security risks to many Afghans traveling to Pakistan." And then she goes on to detail some of those risks. Do you have a comment, Mr. Khan, on the issue of safe third countries for Afghans trying to come to Canada? And is that a problem? And are there maybe some different ways to look at that?
Yes, that's definitely a problem for the former interpreters and their families. That was one of a third country was one of the proposals that we proposed to the previous minister at RCC, as well as the Honorable Minister at the RCC, Sean Fraser. When we met, when we talked with him, we proposed that either Qatar or UAE or perhaps Pakistan can be used as a third country where the families, once they get the UCI and G numbers, the applications numbers, they can be moved to the third country for processing, such as biometrics, as well as any other documentation. But the lack of appetite from the IRCC as well as from the minister himself that they were not interested in these proposals. They were not interested in providing a safe zone to the families of former interpreters to any of the third countries. In fact, that is still our demand from the minister himself as well as the IRCC, that there are a lot of people that are in risk of prosecution and possibly execution by the Taliban government for their relationship with the Canadian Armed Forces, and they're still stuck in Afghanistan.
Time is up for Mr. Reddycop. We will now proceed to Ms. Lalonde. Ms. Lalonde, you will have 6 minutes. You can please begin.
Bien, écoutez, je voudrais remercier. I would like to thank each of the witnesses and the participants here today. It's very important to hear these testimonies. Ask Mrs. Veronis. I have a couple of questions, Madame Veroni, and one is a more general question, and it's regarding maybe if you can highlight to the committee how institutional resilience in relation to immigration and immigrant settlements and integration in Canada can help mitigate decisions that base the valuation of an application on factors such as race, religion, and regional origins, please. Merci.
Merci pour la question.
Thank you for the question. Could you clarify what you mean when you talk about institutional resilience? Are you talking about outside of government? Yes, because the government does some work provincially and federally, and also there is the rest of the approach to make sure that when a person arrives, and I'm not trying to give you a leading question, I'm trying to allow you to answer, but more generally speaking, once decisions are made, what could you tell us that could help us? As my colleague, Mr. Karim Alassam, was explaining, there's a large amount of expertise throughout Canada, especially with regards to the history of immigration, and that since the 1960s, we have accumulated experience in this field. And I can tell you without a doubt that Canada has probably one of the best immigration systems. And when we look at settlement, because of all of these years of having welcomed groups, very diverse groups of populations, different religions, races, ages, and different categories of immigrants, political refugees, people with diverse needs, groups coming here to try seeking a better life, a better quality of life. So as my colleague was saying, to try to develop a more collaborative system, an advisory committee should be created where different members of different institutions with their diverse experience, sometimes their own immigration experience, could greatly contribute to the improvement of the system and help the issues in the system right now. I have two short questions with regards to Francophone immigration. You made two suggestions, not recommendations, but our analyst will speak to this later, but you talked about family reunification and modernizing and simplifying. Could you elaborate on this, please, to help the members of the committee in their study? In my comments, I put the emphasis on the cost of delays to family reunification, where people who are in Canada are living a double life in the sense that they're very concerned in maintaining contact with the members of their family that are outside the country. I think this is a very important factor. In order to, we need to prioritize family reunification. Once the family is united here in Canada, the people already settled can work on integration, on establishing themselves, on becoming Canadians and participating in the society, and also to have their family here, to have support. We have to think of families as a whole, as a unit, where all the members are important. Now, the reasons to fast-track this, if someone is already here, well, the people who will be reunified will be better placed for integration and participate and become Canadian citizens. I think we could accelerate and facilitate by asking for less criteria. Well, I've never made a reunification request myself, but I know that for people that I've spoken to, there are many obstacles, and I think that the administrative procedure is quite complex. And then there are delays, given that there are people here responsible for them when they arrive. I don't really understand why the delays. And in the case of the Afghan refugees, we see the cost. We see that we really need to facilitate and speed up the process. There's a guarantee of the person already here who's sponsoring them. Thank you. I have a few seconds left, and I'm going to ask this question. According to your experience, how is the candidate selection process? How should this provide quality services, taking into account differences inside the Francophone community with regards to race, accent, cultural variations, in order to guarantee criteria and methods for assessment that are viable? answer. For Francophone immigration, I think the objectives are different. There's the demographic issue, there's also the economic issue, but the goal is mainly to support the vitality of minority Francophone communities. I think the criteria are different, and probably the selection process might be a little bit less onerous if they speak French, if they're able to contribute. And so we don't need many more criteria. If I simplify the process, we can accelerate the assessment of the files.
We will, thank you. We'll now proceed to Mr. Brunel Desep. Mr. Brunel Desep, you will have 6 minutes. You can begin.
Merci, Madame.
Thank you, Madam Chair, and thank you so much to our witnesses, more specifically our friends, Mr. Faizi, Mr. Khan. Thank you for your services. We cannot even imagine what you've experienced and what you continue to go through. We already spoke in the context of the Special Committee on Afghanistan, Mr. Khan, and I asked you a question at the time. It's a very sensitive question. I'd like to ask it again so that our analysts can hear the answer and so that all the members of the committee as well. It's a sensitive question, and this doesn't lessen what people are going through in Ukraine. We've seen two different answers. You spoke to this in your opening statement. Two different answers from IRCC with regards to the Afghan crisis and the Ukrainian crisis. We've seen that some Ukrainian groups were exempted from biometric tests. The Department of Transportation, Department of Immigration are trying to implement a type of system that's not quite adequate. And I'd like to hear you speak to what you think between the difference in the way that IRCC has reacted to both crises. Mr. Khan.
Thank you so much for this question. I do remember you asking the same question at the Special Committee on Afghanistan, and the fact that we have told the Canadian public as well as the people at the IRCC that as previous, victims of the Russian invasion in Afghanistan, we sympathize with the Ukrainian people that are fleeing the war in Ukraine. We sympathize any refugee that are coming to Canada. But at the same time, what we ask for is fairness. What we're asking for is lack of bias, either that maybe the region, the skin color, or the religion that differentiates us from the Ukrainians. But we're asking for the same level of compassionate, the same level of generosity from the Canadian government, especially from the IRCC towards Afghans, as they have shown to the previous immigrants coming from Ukraine. Now, one thing that I want to point out here is that the minister, Honorable Minister Sean Fraser, described that the Ukrainians are coming under a temporary process, which will be a 2-year stay in Canada. They might be able to work or something like that, but the Afghans are coming under a permanent program. That's why it's taking long. And I think that's completely wrong. The fact that there's no such thing as temporary stay in Canada. Nobody will be able to, after 2 years, kicked out and say, you go back to Ukraine, unless they voluntarily choose to. That will apply the same for the Afghan families. But I told the same thing to the minister himself, that after 2 years, all those Ukrainians will be eligible for the same kind of permanent residency as well as citizenship and all the other services that the Afghan refugees and immigrants are being offered right now. We've been waiting for 7 to 8 months for applications numbers. We've been waiting since the fall of Kabul, 8 months, and as of today, around 12,000 Afghans have made it to Canada. While for the Ukrainians, that number could soon go up to close to 100,000. So based on the estimation we did from the minister's number that he provided to the media. So if you can say that, obviously a lot of bias in his statement, as well as the attitude of the IRCC and the government of Canada towards the Afghans and other minority groups. Thank you.
Merci infiniment pour cette réponse. Il y avait plusieurs éléments dans.
Thank you so much for your answer. There are many elements to this. Mr. Cannon, I hope that our analysts have taken a note. I don't think I have a lot of time left. Mr. Alassane, you talked about a lack of transparency in IRCC, a certain opacity. I'd like you to speak to two things. First of all, how is it possible that people in Quebec are already selected by Quebec? They've received a certificate of acceptance by Quebec, then they're refused by IRCC. Isn't there here? Isn't there something contradictory here to see that one government is accepting someone and then the other level of government, the federal government, is refusing? I'd like to hear you speak to that.
So, unfortunately, we haven't received a satisfactory answer from the federal government as to why it's taking so long. As you note, Quebec does the heavy lifting in terms of shaping the eligibility criteria, in terms of selecting the candidates, in terms of processing them. When they're handed over to IRCC, all that's left to do is the admissibility check. And yet, just to complete that component, is taking IRCC longer than the time it needs to process other economic class candidates from start to finish. So we don't have a cogent explanation as to why that's the case.
Vous avez aucune explication à ça.
You have no explanation.
Est-ce que ça se peut que le manque de transparence et d'opacité.
Is it possible that the lack of transparency from IRCC makes it why we don't have any explanation? Is that the issue?
I can't think of any other explanation.
C'était parfait. Merci beaucoup.
Just a reminder to all the members and the witnesses, all the questions should be directed through the chair. So we will now proceed to Ms. Kwan. Ms. Kwan, you will have 6 minutes. You can please proceed.
Thank you very much, Madam Chair, and thank you to all the witnesses for your presentations and for taking time to come to our committee. My first questions are to Mr. Khan and Mr. Fazi. I know that you and your colleagues and friends held a hunger strike here in Ottawa on Parliament Hill. And to put pressure on the government to take action so that you can bring your loved ones here to Canada expeditiously. At that time, the processing information was such that 35% of the 300 applications have received a G number and 65% have not. And since that hunger strike, the government had even loaded more additional paperwork onto you to fill out. So between now and then, could you advise whether or not the government has relaxed these requirements for paperwork to which you have already filled out in your first applications?
Thank you, Ms. Gawan. I don't think so they relaxed the paperwork yet, but in the last week of April when we met the Honorable Minister Champrezer again, so they started issuing new case numbers, and we can estimate about 5 to 8% for the remaining application received G numbers. And he also said we'll try to see if we can add more staff in Pakistan to expedite the medical tests, and we don't know yet. And we also pressure for the resettlement assistance program, as he said it will be only for 3 months per your families, and we asked them it should be fair to every refugee comes to Canada, should be the 1-year program support program. So we don't know yet, unknown answer yet.
Thank you for that. Just for our committee's record, I think it would be really important if you can submit in writing to the clerk your asks of the government related to the issues that you brought to the minister's attention in those meetings, so that we can ensure, I hope that the committee members will incorporate what you're asking for as recommendations in our report. Can we get that from you in writing to the clerk?
Yes, we can provide that.
Okay, thank you very much. I would really appreciate that. One of the issues to which the government consistently say is that they cannot waive the documentation requirements. And without the documentation requirements, like the biometrics being waived or for it to be done here in Canada, it means that you cannot get a single journey travel document to go to a third country. And if you can't go to a third country, then you can't get to safety. So on and on the loop goes. It's the egg or the chicken, like which comes first. As the government is trying to sort this out, your family's members are in jeopardy. They're being hunted down by the Taliban. They're in hiding as we speak. So, what would you say is of utmost importance, the most important request for you to the government? Is it for the government to waive the documentations requirement so that you can do the biometrics, if possible, in the third country, but if not possible, for you to do, for your family members to do those biometrics here on Canadian soil once they're here safely in Canada? Mr. Fazzi?
There's two ways that can be done. One, some of our families members can cross to Pakistan, which is a third country, and on their Tazkira or national ID when they don't have passport. But IRCs keep telling us we will be unable to provide you biometrics there. We will be unable to bring you to Canada if you do not cross to Pakistan on legal passport and visa, which is apparently difficult for our families to get it from Taliban, so they will face the problems. And the second, you say if they bring our families here, then provide the biometrics. I don't know about that, if they can do that, but we can help them with some family members that will be able to come to Pakistan if they cooperate with us.
Thank you. I'd like to actually turn this question to Mr. El Azo, because part of the issue in the process of delay is the inability to get biometrics done. This is happening now even in Ukraine. And so what would you suggest for the government to do with respect to the requirements of biometrics for both Afghans and Ukrainians? Sorry.
I think the low-hanging fruit is for the government to seriously explore collecting biometrics upon arrival. This has been an issue that's been raised with the government during the pandemic, and typically two concerns are raised by the government. The first is that if the person is deemed to be inadmissible upon arrival, it can be difficult to remove them from Canada. And the second concern has been raised has been the potential lack of capacity among CBSA officers to process all these people upon arrival. I think the way forward would be for the committee to continue dialoguing with the Ministers of Immigration and Public Safety on this matter.
Same question to Ms. Roranis.
So, I concur. I don't have any additional comments.
All right. So it is possible for the Canadian government to do biometrics, and it has been done before on Canadian soil. And if the issue is CBSA is unable to process all of that, should the government then be increasing resources as CBSA instead of putting families in jeopardy? Mr. El Azo.
I think that's a valid question worth exploration. I mean, we have to remember that one of the three pillars of our immigration system is to support humanitarianism, and in the cases of Afghans and Ukrainians, right, money should not be an issue in terms of supporting these people.
Sorry for interrupting, Mr. Al-Assal. The time is up for Ms. Kwan. We will now proceed to Ms. Finlay. Ms. Finlay, you will have 5 minutes. You can please begin.
Thank you, Madam Chair. Thank you to everyone for being here today online and in person. We very much appreciate it. Mr. Khan and Mr. Faizi, good to see you again. During the fall of Kabul, my understanding is that Ukraine sent a C-130 and took out of Afghanistan a flight full of people that were qualified for our special immigration measures and brought them to that country for safe passage. This is long before the Russian invasion. Ukraine then stopped because Canada would not make the commitment to get them from that country, and now there are Afghans who would qualify under CIMM that are still there. Can you confirm that, Mr. Khan or Mr. Faizi? Do you know that there are Afghans in Ukraine?
Meravani.
I have heard from the news, yes, there are Afghans in Ukraine and they were stuck, and I think they were trying to move to Canada, but I don't think so they have received any help. So we don't have direct connection with them. So since we are the representatives of the former Afghan Canadian interpreters extended families, which is about 4,800 people, and I don't know more than that.
All right. Now, in Ukraine, Afghans who were evacuated there were not offered any accommodations. And in Pakistan, accommodations are only offered to a select group that we understand it's very hard to access. You'd mentioned the difficulty with accommodations before. Has Canada addressed the accommodation issue that is plaguing this response?
Not
In
certainly.
Pakistan?
I mean, yeah. So basically, what happened is that the people in Pakistan that made it to Pakistan, a few selective people were accommodated, but the majority of the people that made it to Pakistan have been left on their own without any accommodation offered by IOM or any other resources. We have brought this issue to the IRCC's attention, and what we've been told is that the International Organization for Migration will contact the applicants once the applicant pass eligibility and all the other criterias. But some of the families have already cleared those criterias, and it's been weeks since they haven't received any notification from the IRCC or IOM for accommodation in Pakistan.
That's what I had understood. It's very hard to access. Prior to the explosion at Karzai Airport on August 26, 2021, IRCC was issuing G numbers and, in fact, issued some safe travel letters validating the names identified as Canadian citizens and been granted visas to enter Canada. But my understanding is that a lot of the holders of these documents had to wade through the sewage trench that circled the airport. Do you know, is it correct that there was no arrangement made by Canada for perimeter defense at the airport or a manned gate to accept people to get through? Is that correct?
Super, I think it is correct because people like the military of the U.S. military were at the front gate when the Canadian applicant were going there to show their documents. So there were no presence of the Canadian military to escort them inside. So they will be left out of help. So there were like more than 300 to 400 people reached the front gate, but they were unable to board the flights because of lack of communication and support.
Okay. My understanding also is that there are currently 34 embassies and 1 consulate open in Kabul. Has the government advised you that they've created any kind of agreement to do biometrics at any one of them to satisfy their requirements?
They say we do not want to do biometrics in Kabul since the government, the Canadian government does not have any recognition of the Taliban, so they do not accept that yet.
Thank you. Thank you so much for your time.
You have 20 seconds.
Well, I'll just say that, our hearts and prayers are with you. What your families are going through is incredible. And really, we just hope that there will be some movement that comes out of these committee hearings. Thank you.
So thank you.
Thank you, Ms. Findlay. We will now proceed to Ms. Kayabaga. Ms. Kayabaga, you will have 5 minutes. You can please begin.
Thank you, Madam Chair. I just want to start by also thanking all of our witnesses who have made time to be here today. I'm going to start with Kareem. Thank you for coming here and to testify. I heard you talk about the backlog on the express visa. And I was wondering, you mentioned about the backlog, obviously you work in this field and you're aware of what's happening. There's also a record number of admissions that has happened. Do you think that the higher number of demands that there is eventually causes backlogs? And what would you suggest the government does to sort of respond to that higher need of demand?
There certainly is a higher demand to immigrate to Canada. You know, it's a good thing, right, that all these people want to come here. At the same time, the government has significant tools at its disposal to manage the demand. So just to give you an example, I believe you're referring to Express Entry. So Express Entry was launched in 2015 to give the government the ability to throttle the number of applications that were being submitted. Because for you to submit your application, you needed to receive an invitation from the government. And so what happened at the start of the pandemic was, even though there were shelter-in-place restrictions resulting in staff working from home, the government continued to issue invitations. And then at a certain point, it realized we can't process all these applications. And so this resulted in the implementation of a pause in the Federal Skilled Worker Program, effective December 2020. This was by far the number one pathway of skilled immigrants coming to Canada since it was launched in 1967. Then in early 2021, the government increased the number of invitations for Canadian Experience Class candidates to transition more people from within the country to PR. And then in September of last year, they realized, hey, we can't process all these applications either. And so they paused that program as well. And so with a bit more foresight and planning at the start of the pandemic, we could have avoided this situation. And what it's ultimately resulting in is more work for the department, because what's happening is all these people that are in Canada and waiting for CEC draws to resume are losing their status. And so that's requiring them to submit new applications to IRCC, which is increasing the backlog.
So what tools do you, I agree with you that better planning would help, but what other things the government could look at to make sure that they're prepared in an instance where they want to sort of relieve a certain stream versus another? Like, what is that even useful, or what other tools would you say the government should be looking at?
I mean, we do it now with certain programs. So for instance, although it's not ideal, with the parents and grandparents program, in the past we would have a cap. People would go ahead and submit their applications, and once the cap was achieved, the government would close the program for the year. It's not a perfect system, but it's a system that the government felt was necessary, because in a given year there's 200,000 potential sponsors in Canada who want to bring their parents and grandparents in. And so if we were to go with a system of all 200,000 can go ahead and submit their applications, you would have a backlog that would take the government 10 years to process the applications coming in for each single year.
So we also heard oh, wow, that was really quick. So I apologize. I'm going to go to Madame Véronique, just quickly on the francophone immigration. Présentement, on prend tout.
Right now, we're making every effort to increase francophone immigration. What could we add to our toolbox? What more can we do to continue to increase francophone immigration in Canada? But you're Franco-Ontarian, and there are francophones outside of Quebec. So how to make sure that people know that they can go elsewhere than Quebec? In the case of francophone immigration, we could think of decentralizing the system, perhaps having a more collaborative system where other institutions participate. I think that we can facilitate francophone immigration.
Express Entry and the other streams that are clogged, because now they're all in the same pool. Donc, en travaillant sur.
So if we work on francophone immigration, we can help in other categories at the same time.
We will now proceed to Mr. Brunel de Sepp for 2.5 minutes. You can please
Merci.
begin.
J'aurais 1 million.
Thank you. I have a million questions to ask, but you've just intrigued me with Mrs. Veronis. You're talking about a separate system for francophone immigration, but I imagine that this is for a francophone immigration outside of Quebec. So de facto, what you're suggesting here is that Quebec would repatriate as many programs for immigration as possible so that they can manage this, and then Maybe you can explain, and then on the other side would be a different system for Francophones? Is that what you're suggesting? I'm not sure with regards to the details or the implementation, but Quebec already has their own system. They manage it themselves. Now, I'm talking about Francophone immigration in a minority context outside of Quebec. So instead of having a Francophone category, for example, in Express Entry or the Canadian Experience or something like that, to have a separate system that works differently with other criteria. I don't know if it's possible. It's not ideal, but it might facilitate. And yes, Mr. Alassane, do you think that if Quebec is repatriating programs such as temporary foreign workers, foreign students, would this have an impact on the delays that we're experiencing right now?
By repatriate, you mean that they would have authority over admissibility as well? I'm not a constitutional law expert. I'm not sure if that's even
Si on oublie la
possible.
Constitution, seulement en termes...
If we set aside the Constitution, just the impact it would have, because they're already chosen by Quebec, and then it's blocking in Ottawa. So if Quebec was managing everything, there would be less delays, right?
It's a very difficult question to answer. It's a hypothetical question because constitutionally, I don't see a path forward on it, right? So, I mean, if there was flexibility there among the two levels of governments to explore that possibility, then, maybe I could give you a more definitive answer. I mean, at the end of the day, there's a constitutional roadblock, and then the second would be the roadblock in terms of Quebec's capacity to process on the admissibility side. Because keep in mind that IRCC has been doing it since Canada's founding, or the various iterations of the department, and they have expertise. So this would be a new domain for Quebec to develop expertise in as well.
L'expertise qu'ils ont présentement...
Unfortunately, the expertise they have is leading to delays.
Ms. Kwan, for 2.5 minutes. Ms. Kwan, you can please begin.
I just want to ask a very quick question. Do witnesses agree that the government should expand the Ukraine special immigration measures to Afghanistan? So just a quick answer because I only have 2.5 minutes. So first to Mr. Fazi and Mr. Khan.
Yes, please, they should do that.
Yes, definitely.
Thank you. And Mr. El Azo?
What aspects from the Ukraine program would you want extended to?
All of it.
So,
what the government has made in terms of application for Ukraine and to apply those special immigration measures to Afghanistan.
I think it's seriously worth exploring. I imagine what you mean is providing them with an emergency authorization to come to Canada quickly and then a work permit upon arrival.
Correct, along with the extended family sponsorship measure.
I think it's worth serious consideration.
All right, thank you. All right, I'm going to move on quickly. Mr. Azo, you raised the issue of lack of transparency within IRCC and all the problems associated with it. Would you support the call for the government to put in place an independent ombudsperson to examine the IRCC's functioning and the policies related to it?
Yeah, I've alluded to this in my second recommendation. I think it would be good for the department. I know that perhaps there would be a bit of apprehension, but the reason why Canada has such a great immigration system, generally speaking, is because we always look to raise the bar. And I know that we have significant challenges right now, but this would be an opportunity for us to address the challenges that we're facing during the pandemic and get external oversight and expertise to set the bar even higher.
Thank you. I only have 30 seconds probably. Ms. Oranis?
Yes, I concur also for the same reasons already mentioned.
I'm going to give my last bits of time to Mr. Khan to make final comments. 10 seconds.
Yeah, thank you so much. Well, definitely, you mentioned about the Ukrainian process being applied to the Afghan process. I think giving the documentation to come to Canada, as well as the RAP program, as well as giving the Afghans to do the biometrics in Canada or any other third country will be our proposal as well. Thank you.
Okay, thank you. We will now proceed to Mr. Jenis. We will have 2.5 minutes for Mr. Jenis and then 2.5 minutes for Mr. Al-Khouri and then end this panel. Thank you. Mr. Jenis, you can please begin.
Thank you so much, and I want to just add my voice to the others who have expressed their affirmation and their recognition for the courage shown by Afghan interpreters who served alongside Canadian soldiers. Admittedly, this is a little bit outside the scope of the immigration issue, but I wonder if you'd like to just reflect for the benefit of Canadians on just what you see as possible futures for Afghanistan. Many people are, of course, very concerned about what we're seeing out of Afghanistan. What are the possibilities that things could start moving in a positive direction again? That there could be political change again.
Is it the political change in Afghanistan or in Canada? Kind of like.
Oh, sorry. I have thoughts on that subject, sir, but I no, that wasn't my intended direction of the question. I guess a lot of people are hoping are wondering if there's reason to hope in light of the very challenging situation in Afghanistan. What do you think about when you think about the possible future of Afghanistan and where things could go?
Past, we fight Taliban for 20 years, and then the United States and the entire NATO left Afghanistan back to the same Taliban, so we fight them for 20 years. At the moment, we don't see any hope. What will the future bring to Afghanistan? But yes, things can be changed, and we might hope in the future that we'll go to democracy. But at the moment, our families are heading for persecutions of their life.
Mm-hmm. Thank you. Mr. Khan, do you want to weigh in on that point as well?
Yes. I believe that, that like at the moment, like I don't see any changes happening to their government. I think what Canada and the international community needs to continue doing is engage the Afghan civil society, engage the Afghan non-governmental institutions. That just because the Taliban took over doesn't mean that the world should, discontinue or disconnect with the civil societies as well as all the other, organizations for social causes. I think we should still continue working with those people about democracy and obviously like peace and prosperity. I think what Afghanistan needs more right now.
Sorry for interrupting, Mr. Khan.
Yeah,
sorry for interrupting. Time is up for Mr. Jenis. We will now proceed to Mr. Al-Khouri for 2.5 minutes.
Merci, Madame. Merci, Madame la Présidente.
Thank you, Madam Chair, and thank you to all the witnesses. Mr. Alassane, if we look at the Immigration Act and the protection of refugees, this requires that spouses that submit themselves to a sponsorship process need to prove to the visa agents that their relationship is an authentic one. Could you explain to us this burden of proving the authenticity of a relationship and inform us on the challenges tied to this?
What needs to be done, as you mentioned, Mr. Al-Khouri, is that the couple needs to provide evidence of the genuine nature of their relationship. And what happens is that when there are doubts, this can delay the process, and it can take even longer than the current length of time for the sponsorship to be for the application to be processed and the decision to be finalized. Before the pandemic, the service standard for spousal sponsorship was 12 months. It's currently 16 months for applications submitted within Canada, inland applications, and it's currently 20 months for applications submitted outside of Canada, as I mentioned in my remarks. Earlier this year, the minister gave an announcement providing an overview of the efforts the department is taking to modernize the system. And among that announcement it was a promise that the government would bring the service standard back to 12 months for spousal sponsorship within this year.
Very good answer, thank you. Comment expliquez-vous?
How do you explain the issue of the weak welcoming of Francophone Africans in Quebec and other provinces in Canada, and what is your opinion on the testimony made by many people who have testified before our committee as to this? You can also answer, Mrs. Véronese. One of the issues with immigration from sub-Saharan Africa is the lack of immigration offices in Africa, and this concentrates in one region, for example, in Senegal, and so this creates challenges for applying. It seems that with international students, the immigration officers did not know that there were post-secondary institutions that were French outside of Quebec that were prepared to receive international Francophone students.
For you, Mr. Al-Khouri. And yes, Mr. Seebeck.
Before you move to the next piece, I'd like to move my motion that I gave verbal notice of on Tuesday.
Talking about for the Ontarian election?
Yeah.
Yes, Mr. Seebeck, can we say thanks
let
to the witnesses go?
Yes.
Yes. So,
yes.
on behalf of all the members, I really want to thank all the witnesses for appearing before the committee. Thanks for your time, and thanks for your input to this study. So we will have some business to go over, like you can leave the committee meeting. Thank you. Yes, Mr. Seebeck.
Thank you.
It's up to you. Yes, Mr. Seebeck.
Thanks, Madam Chair. I'm going to move my motion that I gave verbal notice of on Tuesday, that the Standing Committee on Citizenship and Immigration report the following to the House. Significant delays in citizenship applications over 2 years risk disenfranchising Canadians who are waiting for their citizenship in order to vote, and this issue is particularly urgent in light of the June 2nd Ontario provincial election. The government should move quickly to address this issue so that all Canadians who are eligible for citizenship and who choose to apply are able to fully participate in our democratic life. In light of the situation, the committee requests a response from the Minister by letter by May 20th, outlining actions taken and further actions intended.
Thank you, Mr. Seebeck. Ms. Kwan.
Thank you very much. Here. Thanks. Thank you, Madam Chair, and thank you, Mr. Seebeck, for the motion. One of the things that I was thinking about is the fact that we're actually in the middle of studying. We just, in fact, today started the study on delays in processing. And we just heard from a witness as well in terms of the significant delays impacting citizenship. Mr. El Azo had indicated that I think we're now down up to about 500,000, I think he said. I don't have the exact figure, but it's significant in any event. It would seem to me that it would be useful, actually, to invite the minister to come to the committee to answer our questions as part of this study. This was something that was not requested at the time when we first initiated this study. And owing to the fact that the minister had been coming for other studies, and we thought that maybe we don't need to necessarily invite the minister, but I actually think that we should. And so I wonder if Mr. Seebeck would be amenable to changing his motion to say that instead of having the minister respond by letter, that we actually invite the minister to come to the committee and to respond to our concerns. If he's willing to accept that, I will move that as an amendment to his motion.
I consider that.
All right, excellent. Collaboration moving all the way through.
These
Then
all
let's do it as a
conversations should be
collaboration.
directed through the chair.
Oh, my apologies to
Yes,
you, Madam
so
Chair.
they
to
should be
Mr.
directed to the
Seaback.
chair. So Ms. Kwan is bringing an amendment to the motion which has been moved by Mr. Seaback. Ms. Kwan, if you can please read your amendment so that it is clear to everyone.
Oh, all right, okay, so we'll go that route. All right, then we move, I will move the amendment to strike out the words, after the word, the committee requests, I'll strike out those words and to add in the words that the committee request the minister to appear before the committee to outline his actions and further actions intended to address this concern.
Okay, so we have an amendment moved by Ms. Kwan on the floor.
Sorry,
Mr. Janis.
Point of order. I just want to clarify the language because it sounds like we're using some of the existing language. But so if we say, are we saying strike out the words "our response from the minister by letter by May 20th" and replace it with the words "the minister before the committee to," such that the sentence would read, "In light of the situation, the committee requests the minister appear before the committee to outline actions taken and further actions intended."
Yes, correct. There we go.
I'll just suspend the meeting for 2 minutes just to consult the clerk on something. Thank you. The meeting is suspended for 2 minutes. I call the meeting to order. Can I have all the members' attention, please? So we have an amendment by Ms. Kwan on the floor. That's where we suspended. So back to the amendment by Ms. Kwan. Ms. Kwan.
Thank you, Madam Chair. I'm actually going to move a unanimous consent motion to withdraw my amendment, and then I would like to then move a unanimous consent motion to move a different amendment and for adoption at the same time.
Okay, so do we have the unanimous consent that Ms. Kwan withdraws the amendment she proposed? Okay. Mr. Dhaliwal, you are virtual, and Mr. Richards, do we have the unanimous consent?
Yes.
Okay. Mr. Richards is on the phone. He agrees? Okay. All right. If he can show thumbs up, Mr. Richards. Mr. Richards, do you agree? Okay. We have the unanimous consent. So we are back to now motion moved by Mr. Seebeck. Ms. Kwan.
Thank you very much, Madam Chair. And I would like to move a unanimous consent motion to amend and adopt the following motion, and it should read as such. Given that significant delays in citizenship applications, bracket over 2 years, close bracket, risking disenfranchising Canadians who are waiting for their citizenship in order to vote, comma, and this issue is particularly urgent in light of the June 2nd Ontario provincial election, comma, the government should move quickly to address this issue so that all Canadians who are eligible for citizenship and who choose to apply are able to participate fully in our democratic life, period. In light of the situation, comma, the committee requests the minister to appear before the committee for 2 hours by May 27th, 2022, to outline actions taken and further actions intended.
Okay, so Ms. Kwan has moved an amendment to the motion proposed by Mr. Seebeck. Is everyone okay with that? Okay. Do I have the consent from everyone? Okay. Mr. Richards, if you can show thumbs up, if you agree. Okay. Okay, so the amendment is passed. So we have the motion. Mr. Dhaliwal, yes.
Madam Chair, if June 6th is the election,
June 2nd.
June 2nd is the election when we are asking minister to appear on May the 27th. There's hardly any time left between the minister's appearance and this election. So why are we posting
Mr. Dhaliwal, it says before May 27th. So it's not May 27th, it is before May 27th.
Okay, then I'm okay.
Okay, thank you. Okay,
I wondered if he wanted to add in a reference to the upcoming Surrey mayoral election as well.
Do we have everyone's consent to? Okay. Okay. So the amendment is adopted. Do we have the consent for everyone? Now we are back on the motion as amended. Yes. Everyone agrees? Yes. Okay. So the motion is as amended is adopted. Thank you for the. Thank you. Okay, calm down. Order. Yeah. So thank you for working collaboratively. So I will work with the clerk to figure out the calendar because we have things are changing. So I will have to work with the clerk on the calendar, and I will get back to you as soon as we have some confirmations on that. And so right now, based on the time, we cannot go into consideration of the draft report. Because we have the services available until 1:30, and it takes 15 minutes to go from in public to in camera. Yes, Ms. Kwan.
Thank you, Madam Chair. I just wanted to make a request for consideration for the schedules. It's not a motion. Just as we're scheduling, I find it really difficult for us to sort of do a 1 hour public meeting and then 1 hour in camera, because we lose so much time. So if we can, for the next time when we consider a report, if we can actually book the full 2 hours for it, I really hope that we can get that report done, and then we don't have to keep switching in and out, because we just lose so much time, and we don't have that much time to lose.
Yeah, no, today, I also want to avoid that, but we had it today, so that I thought maybe we can complete the report, as we were not able to complete it yesterday. So I also want to avoid that sort of, because we lose a lot of time in that, going from in public to in camera. Mr. Jennings.
Yeah, I was going to say I totally agree with that. I think at this point we want to just churn through the completion of that report. The other thing I was just going to mention, while Mr. Seaback is here, just in terms of the timeline of his legislation, next week might be a little bit too soon, and hopefully we can get the report done early next week, but maybe the week after. I mean, because we do have an imperative to to get going on that legislation. So just and I think the nature of the bill would be nice to have a few hearings on it, not to try to. We want to try to get through it quickly, but we want to give some time to hear from witnesses on that as well. So I don't know, maybe now is a good time to have a quick discussion about what people want to do on that. But I think and maybe Kyle, you want to speak to that too. But I'd be.
Give me a second, 1 second. Can I have everyone's attention? Mr. Jennings, thanks for raising that. Legislation is always a priority for the committee, and the clerk had a conversation with Mr. Seaback in regards to his availability to come and present. So we are looking at 17th and 19th of May for that presentation, and then we can go witnesses and clause by clause. So what would be Mr. Seaback's preference on that? If you can just give your quick input on that.
The 17th would work for me. I don't know how many witnesses we're going to have. I know Ms. Kwan has said she wants to call some witnesses. I suspect the government does. I have some as well. Monsieur Duceppe as well. So I would think, it's going to take at least 2 meetings by the sounds of it.
We all agree, 2 meetings, we'll each get maybe 1. So,
you are saying that we would need 2 meetings for the witnesses?
I think for myself and the witnesses, I think we need 2 meetings. That's
your presentation and the witnesses.
Yes. Yes.
And then we have to go clause by clause.
Yes. As much as I'd like to be here for clause by clause, I'm unfortunately going to be traveling with the Minister of the Environment May 30th till June 4th.
The important thing is that you are here for the presentation, then clause by clause you can direct it to the other members also. So if the members are looking for 2 meetings on the witnesses, that would mean we will have 12 witnesses, 4 panels. 4 panels, 3 witnesses on each panel.
12. Should we do 3 panels then? So 1.5. So then we have, because we have to do clause by clause, because we may run out of time otherwise before the House adjourns, Because we still got the mains to do, and we now got the minister coming for 2 hours on this.
I'm happy to do it as quickly as possible, really. So.
You see, I would also like to go through the legislation quickly, because that's always should be a priority for the committee. I will work with the clerk, because now we have to look into ministers' availability before 27th also. I think the best thing would be that I work with the clerk to see how we can schedule these things. So we have Mr. Seaback's availability for 17th and 19th. So then we can work offline and work out the calendar around that.
I think let's take this back.
So, like this gives us gives me and the clerk the idea, like what the members are looking for. And now let me work with the clerk on the calendar, and we have to schedule this meeting also. So I can get back to you on Tuesday with like the proposed calendar. Ms. Kwan.
Yeah, I was just going to say maybe 1 to 2 meetings, so it could be 1.5. So instead of 4 panels, it might be 2 panels or 3 panels, depending on our schedule to accommodate. So I think just to be a little bit more flexible so that we can try and get this work done.
So I it's up to it's the will of the members, but if I can propose, if Mr. Seebeck wants to do a presentation for an hour, and then we can have 3 panels, and then clause by clause. Mr. Brunel de Sepp.
Madame la Présidente, Monsieur.
Mr. Seebeck said that I would have a witness, but I'm not yet sure if I'm going to propose a witness for the study of 242. I'm not quite sure yet.
Okay. Okay, so we can have this discussion offline, and like members can also think of in regards to the witnesses, and then I can present to you on Tuesday what we are looking for. Okay? Is it the will of the committee to adjourn the meeting? Okay, the meeting is adjourned.